Pam Grout is the #1 New York Times best-selling author of 20 books, including E Squared, 9 do-it-yourself energy experiments that prove your thoughts create your reality, and the Course in Miracles experiment, a starter kit for rewiring your mind and therefore the world. She's a freelance writer who has published with Scientific American Explorations, Outside, Men's Journal, People Magazine, Travel and Leisure, and many other publications. She's the creator of the TV series Going Rogue and the wacky proliferator behind 2 popular blogs. Her current focus is the 222 Foundation she started to honor her magical daughter Tasman, who has been guiding her from the non-physical since 2018. In this episode of Hopenning 2.0, Pam and I discuss how trusting the universe has opened doors for her as well as it can for everyone else. We also talk about hedgehogs and the ways in which her daughter continues to help her. We welcome Pam Grout. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hopenning. This is the place where hope is happening when you open your mind and heart. And it is so exciting to have my special guest, Pam Grout, here with us today. It's exciting and a privilege. So welcome, Pam.
Well, thank you. I love the name of your podcast, and where hope is happening. That got me right away. So I'm very honored and grateful to be here with you, Fran. Thank you for having me.
And, and that's part of the story because I had read your travel blog, right? And I'm like, wow, this woman sounds super interesting. I want to invite her onto the show. So I put it out there and I said I'm manifesting a budget. And you were like that. You got back to me right away. You said you were waiting for me to invite you. And I'm like, oh, I love this woman. So
That's interesting. You found me through my travel blog. I didn't know that anybody found me through that, but hey, that's great.
how the algorithms work. I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe it was our synchronous universe talking, right? It was synchronicity, which is a wonderful way to introduce. How the heck, Pam, did you get here? You've written 20 bestsellers. So tell me your history. Like what led you here?
Well, it's funny. I feel like I've just followed my heart from the beginning. And I think in some ways, my path has been to try to get away from all the rules and all the shoulds and all the ways we're taught to be by our culture. Our culture teaches us to be afraid. It teaches us that the world is scarce. It teaches us that things are limited and there's only so much to go around. And on some deep level, I think every child knows that's not true. And then we get enculturated to believe these things. And while I was certainly enculturated with the best of them, I think there was a part of me that always hung on to this deeper knowing that there has to be more than this. And so, at the time I was going to university, all the rage was going into computers. And, my sister went into computers and had a very good career with that. But I always loved writing. And that's not a very sensible career path, according to most people. But it's what I love to do. And I was just maybe naive enough. Maybe I don't know. I just thought, well, I can do it. I can become a writer. I can make a living as a writer, or at least I can do what I love to do. And that's what I'm going to do. And it just like one step led to the next step to the next step. In fact, I kind of have to laugh when you said you weren't always here, wherever here is. But I mean, I feel like I'm still here, in the same place. It's just that I have had some success with my writing, and I'm just very, very grateful. But I probably could still be here without having that success still writing, because that is what I love to do. And that's the path that I have pretty much followed is, my heart, which said, you love to write. So keep writing.
Eight. And for 25 years, you say, you've been able to do that.
quite comfortably.
Well, more than that now. I've been on my own as a freelance writer for a really long time now. As I say, my sometimes updated website, I don't know, maybe you saw that on my website or something, but yeah, I've been writing on my own for a long time, a lot more than 25 years now.
You know, Pam, there's many places on the internet that talk about you that need updating. Like it's
Oh,
not,
probably.
oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Like, okay, some places say that you've written 14 books,
Oh,
13, 17. I'm taking it from the source now. You've written,
20 books. Yeah.
okay, good.
Yeah.
Because I mean, seriously, it was, I mean, I basically got to the point where it's like, okay, thank the good Lord she sent me in her bio because I'm pretty sure that's right, because all these other places
Yeah.
cannot be up to date, like they
Yeah.
can't be. So I'm grateful for that. So I'm going to start by letting you know that I went on a crash course of Pam Grout after you said yes. I became very humble when I found out, oh my God, this E squared book it was a New York Times bestseller. And I'm like, Fran, get with the program here. So I did. I mean, I didn't even order it from Amazon. I downloaded it right away from Audible. And I think you narrated it, right? The E2?
Yes, I did read it. So you're used to hearing my voice if you've listened to the audible version of each word.
Yes, and I loved it. I loved, the wittiness. Like there's so much wittiness. Every second sentence practically has humor in it in one way or another. I drove down to Calgary, if some of our viewers know where Calgary is,
Oh,
in
yeah.
southern Alberta. So that's a 7-hour drive for me. I put it on when I left the house, when the roads were no longer white knuckle driving, because it's the middle of winter when we're interviewing now, but almost at the doorstep of where I was going when the book was over. And I listened to the whole thing. And of course, I told my friend about it where I was staying, and she downloaded it right away. And then it was so good that I needed to listen to you on the way home, Pam. So I downloaded E3, E cubed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I have both. I'm sure our viewers want to know about too. So, right at the beginning, you talk about how to tune into an upgraded frequency.
The hypotheses.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. In E squared and in E cubed, I put in experiment and I set them up the same way that a scientist would set up an experiment with, here's my hypotheses. Here's a spiritual principle that you've probably heard before. Like, for example, the first one in E squared is just that there is this force out there. Some call it God, some call it the universe, some call it the divine buzz. I've called it that. I have a lot of different synonyms, but that there is truly this force out there. And so that's experiment number one. So if indeed that is true, then you can actually contact this, or it will contact you. It will provide you with a gift, some kind of sign. And so basically, what those two books do is get us to pay attention to different things because we spend our lives with our attention and our will directed in the way that our culture, our families tell us to direct our attention. But this is a way of changing our attention to look for something bigger, higher, more beautiful. And we find that when we start looking for that, it's there. I mean, it's very, very apparently there. So it's just a different reorienting where you're spending your time and your attention.
One of the stories that you related, I think it's in the first book, E squared, is about the dolphins. Can you tell us about that dolphin story about the lady who wanted to
Oh, okay.
swim?
So that was in the revised version of E squared. E squared celebrated 10 years in let's see, it was in 2023. So we came out with a 10-year anniversary edition. And so in the introduction to that, I told a story of a woman that had been doing the E squared experiment. And as I recall, I get so many of these stories, they kind of, and that was one that had just come to my attention when I was writing that particular introduction to the new edition. But she had asked to see dolphins, I believe. That was what she had asked from the
Yes.
universe. And so she was camping with her family at a beach, only like maybe just a little bit off the beach. And she had walked down there and she saw what she thought were dolphins in the distance, but she wasn't 100% sure. She was turning around to walk back, and something told her to look back again. And there was a whole bunch of them, and they were dancing and jumping and doing all kinds of things. But I can't. It seems like she saw like maybe a dozen dolphins. I'll have to reread that story again. But yes, it was kind of an amazing manifestation where she had like, do I really trust this? Do I really believe that's what I'm seeing up there? I mean, how could they be this close? And they were right there. And turns out they came almost like they swam over to say, yep, here I am.
Yeah, and I think in the story, she does swim with them, like in
Yeah,
nature, like out
yes.
in an ocean, and more of them come.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Thank you for reminding me. I've just read it, whereas it's been a while ago that I read it. So anyway, yes, that is exactly right. So pretty amazing story. Yes.
Right. So talking about if there really is this universal energy force, and if that universal energy force really has my best interest in mind, let's see it happen, dude.
Yeah, exactly. And I love when you just said dude, because it's written in a real informal manner. I think we take things like spirituality to be so serious, but the universe has a great sense of humor, and there's so much beauty and goodness and fun in the universe. So I kind of try to keep it at a very light level because I think you're more apt to do it again. You're more apt to stick with it if it's fun. And B, it's just more fun to read something in a little more low brow, I suppose, way of writing. So that's kind of my style, is to make it real accessible to everybody and not make it too highfalutin or too, I don't know, though it's, you've got to pronounce God right or whatever. It's just
Right,
this force.
right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I see that in your writing too,
Mhm.
and actually in your voice when you narrated it. It was
Oh,
it
yeah.
was lots of laughing at yourself too.
Mhm.
So that I really appreciated that. So what's the FP, Pam?
The FP is what I call the field of infinite potentiality. Again, many synonyms for this field that's out there. Physics has proven there's a field that we can tap into. I mean, that's a physics term, the field. There's a field of energy. And so basically, the name E squared is energy squared. There is energy, and we're all made up of energy. We look solid, we look material, but all of us are 99.9 whatever percent empty space. I mean, that's what's true. And then we have this illusion of this collapsed wave of being material, but it's actually more empty energy. But so we're energy. That's who we are. And our energy, transmits the greater energy. And our energy interacts with all the other energies. And so, we're all part of this big, giant, energetic field. And so I just chose to call it the field of infinite potentiality, or the FP for short. And as I say over and over in my work, it doesn't matter what you call it. It only matters that you call it forth.
I like
That's
that.
what matters. So, you can call it anything.
And even to acknowledge it, same thing. It's so hard for some people to, I don't know if the word is surrender, but just to try it. Just try. So I love your experiments within the first book. You give 9 different experiments. So can you just give us a little hint of some of those experiments because they are fun.
Okay, sure. Well, the first one is called The Dude Abides. And again, you use that terminology. And it's that what we talked about earlier is that there is this force that wants to bless us, that wants to interact with us, that is us. There is this force that we're connected to and that loves us and guides us and all the good things. And we're connected to that. And so that's a little hard to believe because of a lot of beliefs we've had about God. And God is always judging us, always we're expected to do these things. But see, I think people would have a better time trusting this force if we didn't have all that baggage around God, that there were rules and that we weren't loved, because if we knew how much we were loved. So that's kind of what I try to do in the book. It's just to get people to recognize we are truly loved and blessed. That is the state of the world. Abundance, love, peace. We all have that center within us. And because we've been looking in the other direction and looking for just the opposite, we're going to find whatever it is we look for. But that other is the rock solid truth that cannot be moved. I mean, that's always there. We can cover it up with all the other stuff, but that's what's really here. So the dude abides is a good one, because I'm only asking people, hey, what does it hurt? 48 hours. You can sacrifice 48 hours. You can be the biggest. And I also say, don't take my word for it. Try this out for yourself. You need to see it with your own two eyes. Then this little doubt you might have will slowly be eaten away. No more doubt once you start seeing it happening in your own life. So again, it's really easy. They're very simple, very basic, but 48 hours, that's all you got to do. Again, don't trust me, do it for yourself.
In the book, there was a little example about someone wanting a dog, deciding whether they should get a dog or not. And so I'm driving and I'm listening to E Squared, right? And I saw a picture like from the shelter, right? The shelter sends pictures. And I'm like, oh, that dog looks cute. He's 3 months old, blah, blah. He looks like my old dog. And I'm like, oh, gee, okay, I need an answer. So if the answer is either yes or no, I'm given this 48 hours. I need a definite yes or a definite no, whether to get this dog. I'm telling my friend when I got to Calgary, I'm thinking about getting a dog. And she's like, why not, Fran? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just waiting for the answer. She says, how old is it? I said 3 months. And she said, no, no.
It has to be clear.
I listened.
Yeah.
I did listen.
One of the jokes I think I put in that book was that I always wanted God or the spirit, whatever, to work in neon. I wanted, big billboards up there. But I think as we start trusting and trying these experiments, the signs do become clearer. And a lot of it's just the doubt we have within ourselves, like, oh, well, should I believe that or not believe that? We do this to ourselves. That's not God being nebulous or the dude being nebulous. That's us not trusting and us putting up all the blocks and resistance that we do. So yeah, so I love those. Yes, your friend was very clear, so thank you, FP, for making it very, very clear.
I was definitely happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk a bit about some definite stuff in your own life about which direction, right? I know at this point, whether you go that way or whether you go this way, it's still the right direction. But back when you were starting to figure out trust and faith, what were some instances in your own life, Pam, where you were given the answer?
Well, mine often would be I'd have sort of like a vague intention about something, kind of file it away. And I've always known not to put up a lot of resistance to it, because if you make some kind of an intention, like, oh, I want to be a traveler or I want to be a writer, and then you start thinking, oh, well, how could I do that? I can't do that, whatever. I think if you just step by step follow the guidance and don't put up the resistance, it will manifest in your life. It can't not manifest. I feel like people go, oh, I want to know about the law of attraction. Well, like, it always works. It never doesn't work. This broadcast is always there. It's just a matter of we put other things out there to manifest, like our doubts and our fears and all that. So in my own life, for example, I think I read about this in E Squared, but I decided I wanted to go to Australia because this guy I had a crush on had moved there. And so I'm living in Kansas. I'm, thousands of miles away. It's like, how am I going to get to Australia? I certainly didn't have the resources to buy an airline ticket, but a couple weeks later, my editor at the magazine Modern Bride, which is no longer in existence, called and say, hey, we need a honeymoon story about the South Pacific, Australia, New Zealand. Would you be willing to go there? And I'm like, well, as a matter of fact, yes, I would. So those kind of things have happened a lot for me. Just the idea that I wanted to travel. Again, I grew up in a Midwestern family, no silver spoons anywhere to be had. But I just knew I liked to travel. My family would pack up the station wagon, when I was a kid, and we'd drive around, places we could go like that. But I knew I loved traveling. And so I was led to the career of travel writing, kind of in a freakish sort of way. I didn't know that I wanted to do travel writing per se. I know I love to write and I knew I liked to travel. But then an editor called me after a query I'd written and asked if I did travel writing. So, of course, I said yes, even though I wasn't exactly sure what it was. And that enabled me to do a lot of the traveling that I've done. I've been lucky to have been all over the world. And that right there has opened up so many doors for me, just really, I've just been really, really blessed. But again, that's the direction I'm pointing my lens. I'm looking for blessings. I'm looking for the truth of the world. And that's what shows up for me over and over again, just one blessing after another.
I agree with you. Just the saying of yes opens up infinite possibilities, infinite potentialities. But you don't know how to write the travel stuff, but it just kind of flowed. Once you stepped in the river, the inner tube just appeared, right?
That is true. You got to step in the river and trust, and the inner tube will appear. At the time, the editor for Modern Bird, I was already writing some for them, but I hadn't pitched a story to go to Australia. They needed a story, and so they picked me as the person to do that story. And by that time, I was already doing some travel writing, but I fell into travel writing when this editor from Ladies Home Journal had called me, kind of out of the blue, so to speak, and asked me. So it things happen and they're unexpected things. And I think when we stop and say, this is the way it has to be, and that's what happens. We set goals, we have these things we want to do, and then we look to the past. Well, this is how these things are going to happen. Or we look to some book or some manual or some seminar that tells us these are the steps to get where we want to go. But the truth of it is, the universe has so many more doors, so many more avenues for bringing about our intentions and our desires. So the less we do, the less we get in the way, the less resistance we put up, the more those things can come. So I've gotten to the point now where I just say, okay, bring it on, universe. What do you have for me today? What do you have for me now? And I'm ready to listen, ready to act, ready to accept those blessings.
Which now that you've mentioned it, I have
Oh,
I have I don't even know what are these things called?
pom-poms.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Because you talked about just bring it on. And part of the magic is what do you do as soon as you get out of bed, Pam, every morning?
Well, I have a little possibility posse, and I started calling this the AA 2.0 program. It was kind of a joke in the beginning, but there's the AA, the 12-step program. And of course, it has 12 steps. And I'm like, hey, I want it to be smooth and easy. So I started what I called my 2-step program. So the very first thing I do when I wake up is I say, something amazingly awesome is going to happen to me today. That's putting that expectation out there that something incredible is going to happen. I started saying amazingly awesome when I said the 2-step
AA.
program is kind of where that came from. And sometimes I switch it up, but again, it's first thing in the morning is just I have the expectation that today's going to be a marvelous day. And the other thing I do, because I'm really big about gratitude, I think the more we can get into this zone of gratitude, the more blessings we will first notice, and then the more that will be amplified into our lives. But the second step of my 2-step program is I have what I call a possibility posse. And these are 5 friends. And every morning we text each other things we're grateful for from the day before. And while I've always done gratitude, when we started this 10 years ago, it's like it had to be different every single day. So each day I feel like I'm out there. I am on the alert because I'm going to have my possibility posse that's expecting me to register some new blessing from the day before. So, it just makes you alert. Again, it goes, where do you shine your spotlight? Where do you put your attention? And that's the little 2-step AA program that I kind of made up and have written about. So, yeah.
I love it. I do have a gratitude practice, and I use a social media platform. And every morning I do say my gratitudes to a friend who also shares her gratitudes with me. But you also mentioned it in the book too about Melody Beattie, how she has gratitude for everything, whether it's like classified as positive or classified as not positive, to still be grateful. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I mean, I love being grateful for everything because here's the deal. And I'm a student of A Course in Miracles. And one of the first things we learn in Course in Miracles is our judgments aren't correct because we can't see things clearly. All we can see is the little bit of whatever that our limited eyesight sees when the world is so much bigger, has so much more to offer. So to judge anything, once we judge something as bad, first of all, it separates us from that. And we want to be, the truth of it is we're one with everything and everybody. So any judgment makes distance between us. So to be grateful, first of all, there is no good or bad. Like I know people, oh, well, how can you be good for bad things? It's like, well, what is a bad thing? I mean, we all have our ideas about what are bad things. And again, those are just judgments, and it's just a kind of an unhelpful way to look at life. So I really try to not judge things and to give it to a higher source that can see things from a bigger picture. So then I can be grateful for everything. And as you know, the thing happened to me that's the one thing that people say I can never be grateful for this. And I don't know that I've gotten to the stage where I can say I'm grateful for the fact that my daughter, my beloved, beautiful, perfect 25-year-old daughter, 6 years ago had a cerebral aneurysm very unexpectedly and, went on to another plane. I'm very, very grateful. I mean, this is where gratitude comes in that regard, that I got the opportunity to be a mother, to be her mother. I mean, when I was pregnant with Taz, I wasn't married. That wasn't the path that I was necessarily on, but she came to me as the most beautiful gift. I mean, it changed my life in every way. In fact, even becoming a writer, I was already writing for magazines, for, all these shorter pieces. But I mean, here I have a daughter to raise on my own. So I wanted to stay put, and I started writing longer projects. I started writing more books. So anyway, everything about Taz was a blessing. She was just a beautiful, wonderful person. I mean, she just always was. I used to, in fact, my joke used to be that, that whole thing. I said, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. Well, he didn't think I could handle much because he gave me the perfect kid. So then if you stretch that out to look at it, it's like, well, he thought you could handle a lot because, Taz did make her transition into another realm. But even that has enabled me to really stretch how I look at the world and what I believe is possible. Like, I still believe she's with me. She's not here with me in body form anymore, but that is just a small part of who we are. We focus so much on our physical body, but we are connected to a much bigger source. We're big pieces of energy, that's localized in this small form. So it's really enabled me to really test some of those principles that I've always believed. And I've always sort of been interested in the afterlife and, some of those near death experience books. I'm a friend of Anita Morjani. So, you know, there's certain things that I was fortunate in that I already knew when this happened to me. But to say that I'd be grateful for it, that's a bit of a stretch. But I am grateful for so many things about it. Chiefly the chief thing being that I got to be a mom and that I got to be Taz's mom. And I had 25 years with her. That was just amazing. And now, we're spreading her mission and her ideas with the Taz Grout 222 Foundation, which every year on 222, so in a couple of days from when we're recording this, we will be, presenting our this year's award. And I've kind of already announced it because I went to these and helped out with these Ubuntu camps that we did in South Africa in January, but we're also funding like next year's camps as well, and then doing one other project. But so it's enabled me to do a lot of good work on Taz's behalf all across the world. There's a library in Nepal now, for girls. There is at the Big Brothers Big Sisters here in town, there's a Taz's hangout. So in India, in Agra, India, we've got we funded a Shiro's hangout. It's a place for women that had been attacked by um acid. They have a thing in
Right.
India where they'll throw acid and it'll disfigure their face. And typically they would go into hiding, but this thing called Shiro's Hangout where they go and they make tea and they give, basically. So the Taz Grout 222 Foundation is all about changing the consciousness of the world. And again, so many things we believe, like this body is all there is. That's one thing that we're changing. That again, the world's limited and that things are scarce and that we need to be afraid. Those are all things we are actively working to change the consciousness, because until we change the consciousness, until we change how we see things are going to stay just the way they are. We have to let go of the way we have collapsed the wave. In quantum physics, everything's waves, everything's energy. But once we observe it, it's called the observer effect, we collapse it into a more material form. And so the world that we see right now is just the result of old beliefs, old habits that we've collapsed those waves. But we can uncollapse them because that's more the truth, and bring about, the truth, which is more peace and love and joy. So anyway, that's the mission of the Taz Grout 222 Foundation. And, we've done a lot of projects and we're, going to continue to do them every year on 222. We do, an award, a gift to some person or group that's working to change the consciousness of the world. But also sometimes during the year, we'll hear of a good thing and we'll also fund that. So it's kind of an ongoing thing, but our big thing is on 222 because Taz, for whatever reason, had a thing about 222, and she and I started, talking about it, and it became a thing, like a sign. We were talking about, a sign that the world might bring to you. Well, that was a sign that Taz and I always had.
Mhm. 222. And it's interesting. I've got two daughters as well. One was born in 1992,
Mm,
right? And the other was born in 1994.
okay.
And so Taz was right in the middle. I'm getting goosebumps again. So I started this thing myself where whenever I would see 111, I would pray for the first daughter, just pray for her safety, make sure, and just
Mhm.
envelop her in safety. And then whenever I see 222, I'd pray for my second daughter. And actually, after I found out about the 222 Foundation and Taz and how meaningful that number was to the two of you, now it's the both of them. When I see a 222, I'm like thinking about Taz and I'm thinking about my daughter Morgan at the same time, and just the energy and sending that love and the goodness to them both. So I'm grateful for that. I'm
Oh,
grateful that
that's
you shared
wonderful.
that.
You give me goosebumps. I love that. I feel like in many ways, Taz has connected to a lot of people in all kinds of unusual ways, beyond the ways that how we're used to connecting with people. So it's been a beautiful thing. So now you're part of the Taz energy that goes on around the world. So thank you for sharing that. That makes me very happy.
And you know what's another interesting thing is hedgehogs. So tell us about what significance hedgehogs has.
Well, it's really quite a story. But when Taz was maybe in junior high, we always had these fun little games that we did. And I don't know how this got started, but we would play this game that whoever said hedgehog first on the first of the month would have a lucky month. Like just a silly, I don't know why hedgehog, but that's what got started. So, of course, when she was at university, she's up late studying. So she got 12:01, hedgehog, mom. She'd text me, she'd wake me up. And after college, she went off to Europe. And of course, she's 7 hours ahead in Barcelona. So hedgehog, at the minute of 12, she was always ahead of me. But it was just a little game we played from the time she was in junior high, just a fun game. So after she passed, about 4 months later, and I suppose she could have been sending them the whole time, but weird hedgehogs would show up in my life on the first of every month. I mean, unbelievable stories. And I'll tell you the one that's the most remarkable to me. Now, you're Canadian, right?
Yeah.
Hey, do
Mhm.
you know what you know about the hedgehog candies? Or the
Oh,
hedgehog
yes,
is
of
chocolate
course.
shaped like hedgehogs. Right. Okay,
Yes.
so I didn't know about those. But on February 1st of, let's see, was it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I was going in for surgery. And I thought, I'm going to be unconscious. I was going to get out that day, but I thought, how am I going to see a hedgehog? And, I really didn't think about it that much. I come home from surgery. There is a box of chocolate, those hedgehog chocolates that someone from Canada had sent me, along with this little hedgehog stuffed animal. This person had no idea, A, that it was going to come on the first of the month, or B, that I was having surgery. And I thought, wow, what a beautiful hedgehog to even, celebrate, my recovery from my surgery, or, finishing up of my surgery. So there's stories like that. One time I was in Mexico on the first of a month. I don't remember which one it was. And I was just sitting at this restaurant, and this friend walks by and she says, "Could you stop by my house after you're finished here?" Because she lived right around the corner. So I walk over there, and she pulls out this sweater with a hedgehog on it. She says, "Something told me to give this to you." And it happened to be on the first of the month. And I mean, every month there's some hedgehog that comes my way in just amazing. One time I was doing an interview like this, for a podcast, and it happened to be on the first of the month. And this gal that was interviewing me says, "You are never going to believe this, but there's this hedgehog that just walked into my yard." So, just stories like that. So I feel like that's kind of a silly way for us to stay connected, but it's very meaningful for me. And I love those kind of stories because I do believe the world is so much bigger than what we think it is. What's possible is so much bigger than what we think it is. And the more we can be open to that, the more we can see and allow these things to happen. So anyway, that's my little hedgehog story.
And I have a hedgehog story, and we live
Oh,
in
sure.
Canada. I mean, our hedgehogs come from somewhere. They sure don't grow here.
Yeah.
And so when I was teaching school, I was given a hedgehog. Somebody didn't want their hedgehog anymore. Their kids had outgrown it by years, and she just wanted to get rid of it. So I took it in for the classroom. And I mean, kids loved it. Hedgehogs are nocturnal, so they're not that fun, right? It's not like they're up and around during the day.
Yeah.
They're sleeping. But it was part of the routines that we had where somebody got to hold the hedgehog while somebody else cleaned the cage, and they all just loved that. And that hedgehog was named Elmo, Elmo the hedgehog. Anyway, Elmo found deceased one morning, and that was unfortunate, but we were a Catholic school, so we all prayed for Elmo the Hedgehog. And my own daughters, they wanted another one. We went down to Calgary and we got another hedgehog. We found it in, you have Craigslist down there, but it
Oh, yeah.
was something like that.
Mhm.
And we went over there, and the mother was like, "Please take it quick, take the cage, take everything. My kids are at camp, and I want to get rid of it while they're gone." So I'm like, bonus. So we took it all, and he had a good life eating beetles.
That's great. What was the second hedgehog name? What did you name that one?
Elmo.
Oh, they
He
were
was
both Elmo. Oh,
We
okay.
called it Elmo. We
Oh,
called it
okay.
Elmo 2, Elmo
Okay.
the
Elmo.
second, right? I mean, there's not a lot of originality in that. However, we decided, and there was this British lady. She was visiting in my class. She's older. She comes in the classroom and she saw our hedgehog, and she's like, "Ooh, uh, a hedgehog is like a rodent. It's a rodent." And I was so protective, right? I'm like, "We love that hedgehog. We love it." But to her, it's like the glasses, right? It's
Right.
whatever cultural, ideological, whatever label you've
Mm,
associated with something becomes the
yeah.
reality. Okay, very close in the E3 E cubed book. You have a page that's upside down.
Oh,
So what's that about?
well, I wanted to publish the whole book upside down. Like, when you open it up and you'd see the back, so you realize you had to flip it over. But the publisher would not go that far. But I was trying to make the point that everything we believe about the world is upside down. And so it was just sort of a funny way of making that point. There's also a page in there that you're supposed to rip out because everyone knows you never would rip a page out of a book, right? I mean, that's, you don't do that. Again, so much of what we're taught is going to restrict us. So much of what we learn is keeps us from being as creative. It keeps us from being as open to this great force of creativity, which is another name for the FP, that wants to flow through us. So the less we follow the rules or feel like there's only one way to do things, the more this has room to pour forth from us. And I think that's kind of why we're here, is to express ourselves, to express the God part, the divine part of ourselves. And we all have those gifts. And the less we follow the rules, little manual that we all get about what you're supposed to do with your life, does it ever work out that way? No, it's always different. And the more open we can be to that, and the less stuck in that one way of doing life, the happier we are, and the more freedom and joy and good things to inspire other people can come forth.
And you don't even know there's a door there or a window. And
Right.
yet, when you allow yourself to take risks, to be a risk taker, suddenly doors and windows open that you didn't even know were there. It's like the open sesame idea, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good. It's like the first step in some ways is identifying that there is a door, that you've put up a door, because a lot of us don't even recognize we're in a box, but we think that's the whole world, when actually there's a whole lot bigger world out there if we step out, if we open that door, put our toe out. That's all it takes, is one little toe out the door. And then, little by little by little, this other energy comes in and kind of sweeps you up in it.
And part of that energy, I think, Pam, is like you mentioned in your book.
Oh, you're props.
Right?
Yeah, there. Oh,
Fun. You need to
yeah.
have fun with it. Because I mean, I'm in my 60s, you're in your 60s.
Yeah.
If I were to wear this uptown or wherever, I would get the look that, Mrs. Cadrone, because that's how I was always known as the teacher, the name on the door.
Uh-huh.
Oh, she's losing it. I saw her uptown with this thing on her head, right? However, what's your philosophy about fun? And I'll just leave this on while we're talking because it's
I
kind of
love it.
fun.
I'm not going to judge you for it. I love it. I
I
will tell
know
you
I
too. In fact, I do have a beanie that I get out every winter. And oh, I actually have it right here.
oh
So
beautiful.
here we can both be here with our weird hats. And I do wear this out all the time. And you would not believe all the comments or compliments I get on my little weird beanie. I love it. And in fact, I bought this for Taz many years ago when I was out in Colorado skiing. She didn't ever really take to it the way I did. So now I love it. And like I said, every winter I get it out. In fact, the reason it's sitting here because I had it on and I just had pulled it off. I don't know, and left it here. But anyway, so yes, here we're both sitting here. So, okay, so my idea is that fun and God to me are kind of synonyms, like joy and happiness are what we're supposed to be, but we're taught the opposite, that we're supposed to take everything so seriously and that life is so serious. But what if it's not? I mean,
What
I
if?
believe it's not. And I believe the more we can laugh at ourselves and the more we can open to humor, again, it leaves space. I mean, that's, of ourselves, we can only do so much. We're limited. We're one little human being, but this bigger force wants to flow through us. And the more we can open our channels, the better. So having fun and humor, I think, is a way to open those channels a little bit further, to take us away from, yes, it's got to be like this. I can never go out. In fact, we should get together, Fran, one of these days, and we'll both go out with our hats on and we'll just see what kind of mischief we can come up with.
I used to have the red nose, the
Oh,
foamy. I,
excellent.
I did. And I don't even know, maybe it was Patch Adams. Maybe it was
Oh, yeah, I
that.
love him. Yeah.
That influence, right? But I had the red nose, and actually we did a fundraiser at school, the red nose fundraiser, and I think we sold red noses for like $1, right? And we had a red nose day because it's like
Uh-huh.
middle of winter and it's minus 37, whatever. What else? What are you
Yeah.
going to do? You can complain. You can create your own reality of I hate winter, or you can be, let's all wear red nose because I mean that's what winter is like in Canada. And it was so much fun. So my daughters and I, they weren't teenagers yet, but we would wear those things uptown, right? And we would wear it to go get the mail or I
Well,
even,
that's awesome.
right? Like, and it's like, why not? Who said we couldn't?
That's right. And who said we should all wear it? I mean, it probably kept your nose warm while you were out in the cold Canadian winter. So yeah, that's beautiful. Well, it's funny when I, give workshops. I haven't given any for. I call them play shops, and I actually play this. There's this game that we do, and the winner. It's kind of a fun thing to demonstrate one of the principles. I give out the little red those little foam noses to all the winners. I mean, that's your prize for when you if you're the one that gets the most of this thing about feeling better or whatever. So anyway, yes, I'm all for that. And who told us we weren't supposed to have fun, or who told us we're supposed to dress a certain way? I mean, who told us that? We don't even know where all these ideas come from. And yet we follow them, we fall in line, and we do them, and we don't even know why or
Why?
what the point is.
Or what age we're not allowed to anymore, right?
Exactly.
That age
Exactly.
thing as well, because when my daughters and I were younger, I mean, I'm about your age, so but we had all kinds of wigs, and we would wear these wigs uptown to get to the gas station or whatever. It's like who said we couldn't? I mean, it's a pink wig with silver streaks in it. And there's the green wig. And then there's the red wig that's got, the voluptuous red wig. But
Mhm.
I mean, it was fun. And somewhere somebody said there was an age that came into it where you have to act your age.
Yeah.
Which age? Which age do I get to act? Do I get to act
Yeah.
like I'm 5?
Yeah. Yeah. What is that? That's crazy, but that we all know that term, actor age. Well, what does that even mean? So
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know, Pam. What is your latest book?
the Courts and Miracles Experiment is the most recent published book. And then
Okay.
I'm writing another book at the moment that is I'm not quite clear when it's going to be coming out. It's sort of writing me, you could say. And but that is the next book. And it's related to Course in Miracles, as you could say all my books are. But it's kind of about the voices that in our head that tell us that we can't do things. And I mean, it's kind of like, well, here's how I owned you humans. It's like the ego talking, the
Yeah.
ego that tells you all these ideas that you're not supposed to do, you're not supposed to do this. So that's kind of what it's about. And again, it's kind of writing me or coming through me. But there's no actual pub date at this point. But I guess the biggest writing I do now that's dependable is I have a free blog, and pamgrout.com, and anybody can sign up and read those posts that also they put on Facebook as well, on my whatever, the fan page on Facebook. So I'm a big believer in the gift economy, so I like to write, and so I do a lot of blog posts on there as well.
Yeah,
So
the gift economy. Just explain that a little bit for anyone who's not sure.
we'll talk about shifting and everything being upside down. We are so monetized in this world. Everything's about business and about capitalism and about all that. So this is a philosophy where the more you give, the more safe you are. And so it's not about getting, it's about giving. And it's a really strong movement. I mean, there's a group called Service Space in the United States, and I've been a part of them. They've got people from all over the world, volunteers from all over the world. Everything they do is totally out of love and for the purpose of service. I mean, I went to India with them. Was it 2 years ago? We went to Gandhi's ashram. And so it's about giving. And so, like, it started out with this guy. He was a Silicon guy, and he decided to start doing websites free for people. And then he decided that he wanted to do more. So eventually he quit his job and he just started giving things away. And his organization has grown. That's Nipun, who started Service Space. And now, like I said, he's got more than 1 million people that are volunteers. This whole army, so to speak. That word sounds kind of militaristic, but this whole group of people that are serving, they do this daily good, which is, good news stories every day. They've done karma kitchens where they give free food. They've done, again, these groups that go to India with Gandhi's ashram. So all kinds of different things that they do. And I've been volunteering with them for quite some time. So the gift economy is really about the economy of the gift as opposed to this capitalist economy that's always wanting to get and take.
And that's called service-based
Service space. And you
space.
can look service space. I think that's all one word, service
Right.
space with a capital S with the second S too, I believe.
Yeah.
But there's quite a bit about it. I've written about it on my blog as well. In fact, one year, the 222 Foundation, we gave our grant to them, or not a grant, the money to them, because
Yeah.
again, they inspire me. Always the people that we choose to give money to is people that inspire me, that I feel
Yeah.
are doing really good things to change how I see the world, how the world could be. As long as we keep believing the world has to be how it is now, it will keep being how it is now, but it can be different. It's just something we have made up and we can change it.
I agree too. Is
Yeah.
there a place where I can find a list of all the places that the pat
Foundation.
yeah, all the foundation
Yeah. If
money has
you
gone to?
go, I think it's on my website. Like each year on 222, I write a blog post. In fact, I'm getting ready to write my one for this year. It tells the different, but there's not like a list, just like you go, here's one list. I guess I could do that. Maybe I should do that as one post that people could find. But you can go under the 222 Foundation on my website and it lists, you just click each one and it'll tell you, the various recipients over the years. So
Right.
the first one would have been in 2019. So we got 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. And so this will be the seventh award that we're giving this year.
Wonderful idea. Wonderful way to keep her alive. Not that she's
Yes.
not. I mean,
Yeah.
I believe there's a presence and actually even closer now than when they were alive, because when they were alive, there was space in between, there was distance in between. But now that they've passed, they live within us as well. And she and your DNA was the same as well. So she lives on within you and
Mhm.
within your DNA as well. So what a beautiful way to honor her. Like,
Thank you. Thank
and so many people have been touched by her life as well and will continue to be. I'm sure that even after you pass on to the next realm, that the foundation will continue as well.
Yes, it will.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I always end the show with, what is your last message of hope?
Wow. There's so much more goodness and love out in the world than anybody ever knows. And so my message of hope would be to trust that, begin to kind of look for that and just see if that might be just as true as whatever belief you have that the world is a scary place.
It's all about which glasses we put on.
Yeah.
Actually, Pam, I forgot to tell you, I've got one more
Oh,
prop,
another prop.
another
Woohoo.
prop, and it had to do with Valentine's Day.
Oh, wow.
And you know what? When I was teaching, we would get like dozens and dozens of Valentines, right? But
Mhm.
since I've retired, I don't get to do that anymore, and I don't get to hand them out. However, I listened to your book on the way home, and I stopped at a place to get a coffee and stuff. And I'm like listening to your book and I'm like, whoa, it's Valentine's Day. And it was Friday and I needed to do something. And the thoughts go through your head, right? About, you're a single person, blah, 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 blah. And so I'm like, you know what? I am going to buy a box of Valentines and I'm just going to hand Valentines out. And the voice said, why just a Valentine, Fran? Why can't you give something more? And I'm like, but anyway, I did it. So I go into, we have Shoppers Drug Mart here. It's a drugstore. And I pick out the Valentines and I pick out some candy, some wrapped candy to go with it. And the girl at the counter was like the brilliant red hair, that kind of stuff wouldn't be for me, but I like seeing it. And I asked her about it and she told me all the details and she's probably 19. So I went out to the car and I wrote my first Valentine for her.
Oh,
I said, I love your smile. Your smile makes me feel happy inside. And then I wrote just a grateful customer. But while I'm writing this one, another person pulled up in their truck. It's a big Dodge Ram in Canada. We have tons of these big Dodge Ram trucks. And so I'm like, okay, they left me tons of space. So that they could open their door and they wouldn't hit me, blah, blah. So I quickly wrote another one to the guy that drives the 3500 Dodge Ram. And I got on my car and I walked over there, knocked on the window, right? And he like opened it up. And I'm like, this is for the driver. And there was a little candy with it. And he was shocked. And then I wrote another one because somebody else pulled up. It's in like 3 minutes, right? And I'm already ready to hand out my third Valentine. There was a girl that jumped out. She was probably like 18. And she was just taking her dog for a walk, like a pee break and just a little walk. They must have been driving for a while. So I quickly wrote one out to her that I really appreciated, that she was such a good dog owner. I used to own a German Shepherd. So from one German Shepherd owner to another, and I gave that to her, and her face, it was like incredible, like the joy, all of these people, like so unexpected joy. And I finally, after I gave out all these other ones, I went back in there and into the Shoppers Drug Mart, and I gave the girl, I tell her Valentine and her candy, and like she was like, oh my God, this is perfect. I love you. And she's like blowing me kisses, and I'm blowing her kisses back. But I thought it was so much fun. I gave out 28. I ended up having to buy more candy so that I could keep on giving out. And I took my very last one was to somebody on my street, and she had my gift. And inside, this is going to be interesting for you, Pam. Inside were red candies.
Ah, the red pill.
The
Yay.
red pill. So, and it's in your book, right? It's like have your own experiment.
Yeah. So many synchronicities. That's beautiful. I love your Valentine's story. That's so great. Thank
It
you for
was,
sharing that.
you know what? It's one of my favorite Valentines ever
Yeah.
because it was so spontaneous and it wasn't planned at all. Like from moment to moment to moment, it wasn't planned. And it was allowing fun to happen and create joy for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So,
beautiful. That's the perfect note to end our time on, was your great story. Thank you. That was
oh,
wonderful.
and thank you for inspiring it. So,
Yeah.
Pam, how can people get a hold of you or how can they read your books?
My books are everywhere. If you know my name, you can find me. I'm out there just with my name, Pam Grout.
Yeah, PamGrout
That's right.
.com.
Yeah.
So thank you for being here with me. Thank you for making my day so fun. And definitely we're going to wear our hats out. And hey, we encourage you to as well. Take something
Yeah.
out of the closet, dust
Start
it
a
off,
movement. Yeah.
start a movement because who said we couldn't?
Right.
Yeah. And if you liked what you heard, please subscribe. It helps me, it helps Pam, it helps get the idea of hope out because the world is a beautiful place if we just choose to see it that way.
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Pam.
Thank you, Fran. It
Okay.
was
You
great
take care.
fun.
Yeah, it
Bye-bye.
was. Bye-bye. This podcast and Inspired Healing Hypnotherapy do not provide medical advice. The information included here is not limited to text, graphics, images, or other material contained and are for informational purposes only. No material in this podcast is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen, and never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this site.